Next week, the citizens of Guilford County, Greensboro, will see exactly what we're talking about. In this video, you see Chantal Crenshaw back his vehicle up in a parking spot. When he backs up, the front end strikes this officer's vehicle. Officer gets out of the vehicle. And once he gets out of the vehicle, Chantal started to pull out, turn his car to the left. And at the time that car turns left, the officer not a trajectory. In fact, he's almost protected by the back of his vehicle. He easily could have moved out the way or anything, but the vehicle was not coming in his trajectory path. He shot 2 shots, striking DeSanto. And the last shot, shooting DeSanto when the vehicle clearly passed by in the passenger window. Now, we're not here to put this case and argue this case in a court of public opinion. But one thing, as representatives of this family, we're not going to allow a narrative to be put out there that's simply not true. It's not true that Chantal Crenshaw was killed unlawfully. When the video comes out, you don't have to take my word for it. The video will speak for itself. It speaks for itself. We making amendments to our federal lawsuit. I'm going to come back and answer more questions, but I don't want to take too much of time. And Mr. Burris, come over and introduce yourself.
My name is John Burris. I'm a civil rights lawyer from California. Many of you may know I did the Rodney King trial some years ago. So I have a lot of experience dealing with police misconduct, and particularly cases where a person is shot while driving his car. It is almost fundamental in the law that you do not shoot into a moving car unless your particular life is in danger. And when we look at the video from an objective point of view, not subjective, the author can say whatever he wants about what his life, because he has to justify the shooting. But objectively, if you look at it, you can see that the car veered away and was in no way coming at him at the time he fired the shots, which makes it, frankly, almost a murder case. You know, my way of thinking, this is a case that should have been indicted. Now, granted, the DA chose not to, but that doesn't make it any less evil and any less notorious. So, having reviewed that evidence that we saw today, and I can't imagine there's any other evidence that we did not see that would change perspective on it, is that it's pretty clear that Mr. Crenshaw's civil rights were violated, that he was subject to wrongful wrongful death, and that the firing and shooting of him violated his constitutional rights. And certainly so from our point of view, given we can't do a criminal case, we can certainly vindicate his rights. And it's very, very important that when a person's life is taken unlawfully, that someone speaks for them, that there's a clarion call that all can see, and that is not something that you can do justifiably, keep it in the dark, and think you will not be held accountable. So in this way, he will be held accountable in a way, but the city itself will be held accountable as well, and that's very, very important. So as Mr. Daniels has said, this is a situation where the fact pattern itself clearly indicates that this officer was not in a position of danger. He can say all he wants, but the facts do not support that. And as a consequence of that, he took this young man's life unnecessarily so. And he had many options to make sure he was in a position of safety. He chose to ignore the safety position that he was in and only look at the way the car was driving. And that car was driving by him, and he shot into that car, which is evidenced by the fact that if you looked at the shootings in the car, you will see that it came on the passenger side through the windshield, and clearly he was on the side of the car when that took place. So it is very clear now that that part has been seen, others will have access to it, but this is clearly a wrongful shooting, and a young man is dead who should not be dead, period.
All right, and I know we made an initial statement through a press release, but we wanted to actually go see the same evidence and review the same evidence that the district attorney received. And I think that's good lawyering, to get the evidence and see the evidence exactly what the district attorney viewed. And we saw this evidence. As Mr. Burris stated, this is a clear case of unlawful killing. It's not even close. I represented the Brown family over in Elizabeth Cedar, so many cases here in North Carolina. It's up there with, that's been one of the worst shootings that you can imagine and see. And once the video come out, you'll see that DeSanto was driving away from this officer, and he shot and killed him. So with that being said, we're gonna open up for some questions. We will be amending the lawsuit. I know we initially had a John Doe in the lawsuit. Well, we know who that John Doe is now. That's Matthew Slayton. Yes.
Mr. Daniels, I'm Annette Ayers with the News and Record. The court has placed a restriction on the release of this video and has asked that any images or voices of juveniles be redacted. How do you think that will impact what the community will be able to see?
Well, let me say this. It is some images of juveniles and some voices of juveniles, but we've seen the unredacted version of this case, and I think that the voice or what the juvenile was saying after the fact when the shooting took place is very telling. I guess it shows the fear that he had of this officer and being afraid that he possibly was going to shoot him also. I mean, he literally was looking back at the officer the whole time saying, "Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me," after he had just finished shooting and killing his friend. So.
Was this the juvenile in the passenger seat?
That's correct. That's correct.
I don't think that the failure to have the picture and likeness of the deceased juvenile matters at all in many ways, because you know he's a juvenile and he's under 18. The important thing is not him in terms of who he was, at least in terms of liability. It's what did the officer do? It's what did the officer do and what was his options? And clearly the law is the officer cannot set up his own standard, a subjective standard, to say, I felt my life was in danger. That's not the test. The test is, would an objectively reasonable officer have believed that their life was in danger? I've been involved in many cases where officers are shot into cars. The law is pretty clear generally that you're not supposed to shoot into a moving car because of the very danger it can create. You can create an unguided missile that can cause great harm to other people. So an officer, if he has the chance to avail himself of safety, he is supposed to take that position as opposed to endangering the lives of others. Right. Unfortunately, this officer did not do that. And so what we have is a dead young person here that should not be done. And all he had to do was hold his position, maintain de-escalation, and not force a confrontation when he didn't have to, or not shoot when he didn't have to. And unfortunately, he chose the latter. But it was not objectively reasonable to have done that. And so that makes it a violation of constitutional rights.
Essentially, he shot where he was in a position of safety. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you think the police department themselves petitioned the court to release the video?
You got to ask them that. You got to ask them that, why they want to petition video. I don't think that's something that should be looked at. Well, they want to show they did anything wrong. A lot of the public pressure to release the video. You have the attorneys for the family saying one thing, the district attorney saying another thing. For the interest of the public, the video should be released.
You said he shot while he was in a position of safety?
He was in a position of safety, correct.
Was that behind his vehicle? Was that behind some other?
Actually, when the video comes out, he was actually almost parallel to his back trunk at the time he shot his weapon. The vehicle, when it first comes out of the parking lot, Nisanto, he's cut his wheels hard to the left. So essentially the car is passing him, clearly not a trajectory path when he's beginning to shoot. He got a barrier here, and he also have a car going in the opposite direction. That's can't get no safety in that.
To give an example,
Okay.
if you're here, the officer's right there. The car officer, shooter, starts like he's here. And when he goes, he turns this way. And he's turning and turning. As he's turning, the officer then shoots into the car, going right through the passenger front window.
And this would be the car, the officer's car. So
it's almost like he was making a half moon turn. You know, and I've used that term before. It was half moon, he was turning away, and as he's turning away, he's getting shot. And it's clear that, at the very least, the third shot was one that the car was clearly going in the opposite direction with the officer.
And you can see the bullet go through the passenger side of the window where the 14-year-old kid was actually sitting in that seat. Questions?
Clarify me, if you will, the lawsuit and the police department and the police officer are both naming a lawsuit, is that correct?
Well, initially, the police office, the city of Greensboro, The police department is just a department for the city of Greensboro. But the officer now, who we know, we'll make an amendment and add his name in the lawsuit. Initially, his name was not released. His name is Matthew Lewis Slayton. His name will be added to the lawsuit. I think when they released Corporal Slayton, who's been on the force since 2008, but we know exactly who he is now.
And neither one of you gentlemen are saying necessarily because somebody could hit somebody with a car. You're saying that that video is going to show he was just not in a position for that to essentially have taken place.
Correct. Given the direction in which the car was moving, that I've described as a half moon, it was not veering in the direction of the officer. In fact, it was moving in the opposite direction. Now, initially, when the car is back over here and the officer's this way, he does turn, and at some point in time, the car can be seen looking, you can look from the car and you can see the person to the officer, but the car then turns away.
He didn't shoot at the time when the car was starting to come out.
Yeah, he shot when the car was in the process of turning. And certainly the last shot, and each shot is, you have to be accountable for each shot. Each shot has to be determination that your life or someone else's life was in danger. Each one. Not that all three count as one, each one counts as separately. And there's no question that the third shot occurred, which is referred to as the kill shot, occurred when the wheels of the car had already turned away from the officer. So that's why we have real questions about that.
And to add to that point, Williams versus Strickland, a case in the Fourth Circuit United States Court of Appeals, has spoken to this matter. Specifically says trajectory, path, officer safety, whether the use of force is lawful. In fact, it says the initial force may be lawful, but when it's no longer lawful, no longer trajectory path of the vehicle, any additional force is unlawful. The district attorney should look at that. If it's an unlawful constitutional act, at minimum, that's all we're saying, at minimum, the citizens of Guilford County should take a look at it to determine whether criminal charges should have been brought.
Two questions. When will the updated lawsuit be released?
Today?
Today. That will have like the additional name of the officers, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know what time today?
It'll be, our media guy sent it out to you. It'll be very shortly.
Okay.
Very shortly.
Since we did, my understanding is that the video is going to be released on the 25th after talking to the Greensboro Police Department. Since we haven't seen the video, when you say the car was turning, the officer's first shot, was the car already turned away?
That's right.
Or could it be perceived that it was like in the motion of turning?
It was already turned away when he first shot. His first shot, it was already turned away. And the third shot, he was passing him. So I hope they release it today. Release the tape. If you have to take my word for it, release the tape. Question over here?
How far away was the vehicle from?
I would say to probably 10, 12 feet, give or take. It wasn't as close as they stated it was. It was 10, 12 feet. But, videos really can't tell from the view. You can't really tell from the video, but that's a guesstimate.
Plus the car was moving slowly.
It was moving slow.
It was moving slowly.
Maybe 11 miles per hour, maybe
Yeah,
max.
Max. I mean, this is not a car that was at a high speed trying to get out of there. He was trying to get away, but he was turning, but he was doing it slowly. Okay. And so, even so, you could move. This was not a situation where even if the car was coming directly at him, he couldn't move because he couldn't. He wasn't locked in. He had a car there. He could have moved, and he chose not to.
And when you see the video after the shooting, the vehicle jumps a curve and it comes to a controlled stop. So that tells you the speed of Nisanto, how fast he was going. It came to a controlled slow roll and stop.
Right.
So it wasn't a situation where a car was even accelerating.
It was a slow move.
It was a slow roll. He decided to shoot and kill him.
Okay.
Any more questions? Y'all got questions today. I like that. Go ahead.
The footage is set to be released on the 25th or by the 25th. It could be released before.
It can be released at any day now.
Okay. And as a civil lawsuit, is there an amount that you guys are asking for on behalf of the family?
There's no amount specified in the complaint.
Was there some discussion about contacting the Justice Department
Yep.
to review Avery Crump's decision, and what is the status of that?
Yeah, we've already sent a letter to the Department of Justice in this matter. I mean, obviously, when the district attorney makes a decision not to pursue charges or bring to the grand jury, we have to take other routes, and we have reached out to the Department of Justice. We know they are in receipt of our letter petition. Hopefully, we get a response soon enough. But right now, we don't know. The Justice Department usually work kind of slow, but hopefully they get involved in this case. And usually, they get involved in cases where the district attorney don't send it to the grand jury, at minimum. at least send it to the grand jury. Let them consider.
And when did the Justice Department receive your letter?
I don't know the logistics of that. I didn't send it out.
Okay. I didn't know if it was email or snail mail.
It'd have been mailed to them.
Okay.
On behalf of the family, I guess, what do you all hope will happen to the officers who shot?
Well, is anybody else want to answer that question? What hopes to happen to the officer?
We always hope that an officer be placed in a position where they couldn't do it again. And to me, that could be terminated. Ideally, the situation would be for them to be terminated, and that's certainly what the family would like. Terminated at one point. The other part is to be prosecuted. Prosecution. So that would be what the family would foremost want. In the cases I've been involved in all the well over 1,000 cases, the families most often want the person to be prosecuted or placed in a position where they can never do it again. Money often is secondary. And so I'm certain in a situation like this, given the horrendous nature of the shooting itself, the family wants the person to be criminally prosecuted, either on the state or federal court, on the civil rights violations on the federal court. So that's clearly what they prefer. And if they don't get that, then they'd rather termination. But that's not under their control. The only way we can actually control is the filing of a lawsuit. I should say, we can't, filing a lawsuit, we control that. But the second component of it is asking the U.S. Attorney's Office, Justice Department, to file charges.
This case is, like I said, we've had, he'd have had thousands of cases, these type of cases. I've had several of them. This is a very sad situation. 17-year-old child lost his life. It never should have happened. You have an officer that's trained as a corporal supervisor, who a supervisor over police officers. You would call them master police, to have the consideration to think before he shoots. And I think this case has warranted some of the best civil rights lawyers in the nation, in our history. John Burris, and Shamika White, who's not here. But we just want to pursue justice and consider pushing forward. Now, hopefully this video will come out soon. Last question. Who got it? Going once. Y'all been great. Thank you. Oh, we have one more.
What do you know about the officer so far? My understanding is that he's still on administrative leave, but have you guys found anything else in his past, any infractions or anything like that?
No, that part was coming in discovery. Normally discovery, we would seek that information in discovery to find out his training and past performance. But not at this time. We don't know anything of his status or whether he's back on the street, but hopefully we'll know soon enough. All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.